My name is Hugo Byrne and I'm a knife maker. So it started off as a hobby really. I was doing an internship in conservation leather frac a couple of years ago, good few years ago. And while I was there, they tasked me with this design job to design and make 3 chopping boards out of these offcuts of walnut that they had. I think more to keep me busy than anything else. But while I was trying to change these perfectly good, beautiful pieces of wood that were already perfectly good chopping boards, I kept thinking about the knife that would be used with them. So I was getting really distracted by the idea of the knife. So I said, actually, can I make the chopping board and the knife as well? And they said, yeah, of course, absolutely. So they taught me how to forge, what the forge was, all these books down on forging techniques and, cutlery traditions and all this sort of stuff. So I started by making the knife and learned loads about it, form, function, metalwork and woodwork, how to use all these different machines and things. And of course the chopping boards never got made in the end at all. So once I made the knife, I was hooked, But that was how the hobby was born and then how it ended up as a job. For the blades, I use mostly high carbon steel. Most of it is either Japanese or German. And then for the handles, the reason I use high carbon steel, proper high carbon steel, is because it's a functional tool. You can do a lot with reclaimed steels and that kind of thing, but a lot of the time you wouldn't be using them for the actual cutting edge of the knife because it's got a job to do. So it needs to be a specific high carbon tool steel really if it's going to actually be a functional object, But handles wise, there's a bit more scope, I find. So I love using kind of salvaged or wind felled materials, something that comes down in a storm. I hate the idea of chopping down a tree to turn it into a knife handle. So working within the limitation of what comes down naturally is much more sort of exciting, And as well, then the coloured stripes, like the coloured stripes in these. This is one that's sort of half made, but you can see the coloured stripes on the handle there. They are all ocean plastic that washes up on the beach. So again, it's within that limitation. Do you know what I mean? If you find a small piece of plastic this size that washes up on the beach, you get a couple of knife handles out of it, but when it's gone, then it's gone. So it's the kind of scavenging hunt for the materials is a big part of it, I think. I like working with that sort of limitation. There's bits of scraps of it all over the place, but I just grab one. I'll grab one. You find something like this, and you go, oh, cool! Look, I'll get loads of that. When you chop it up, and then it doesn't look like much, but then actually they turn into really beautiful pieces of the handle. And there's a romance to these materials that it washes up on the beach. Where did it come from? You know what I mean? It's really ephemeral. It's also a horrible thing, there's so much plastic floating in the ocean, but again, there's plenty of plastic in the world without there, more being made to turn into knife handles, you know what I mean? So there's sort of it's kind of satisfying in 2 ways, if that makes sense. Forging is really, really great fun. It's really primal and straightforward, and you can really see the piece of steel take shape very quickly in front of your eyes. You start off with a lump of steel that doesn't really look like anything, and kind of before you know it, after a few hits and a few taps and heats, it really does start to. And the way it changes shape is this really kind of organic, almost stop motion way that it sort of takes the form of a knife with the tapers and everything. And that's extremely satisfying when you're getting that right. When you have it kind of dialed in, it's really, really satisfying. And the better at forging you get, the less grinding you have to do. Grinding is not all that exciting. So I really love the forging. But as well, there's over the years, as we've kind of tweaked the process and we change parts of the process and say it's a real pain spot. Can we slicken that up? Can we make this a bit more efficient? So every now and then we kind of hack a painful part of the process that changes things, and those kind of tweaks and developments really, really excite me. Not quite in the way that I love forging, but they're sort of more specific to my process that I really love those tweaks. When you crack a case, it's really quite satisfying. You know what I mean? There are a few over the years that I've been very reluctant to let go of, but that's an awful habit to get into, you know what I mean? If you start saying, oh, I'm going to keep this one, then you're screwed, you know? You have to let it go, you got to say goodbye. But no, yeah, over the years. And like, it's not, you can set out to make a real showstopper and you know this is going to be the best one, and then sometimes it's not as sort of as glamorous or as gorgeous as you were expecting it to be, and then another knife that maybe you didn't have as high plans for. Just something about it, just some quirk in the lines or the form or the grain of the wood or whatever. Just sometimes one just really stands out in a way that you can't really put your finger on, or for a reason you can't really say why. So it's hard to know, you know. Sometimes, as I said, you're trying to make a real showstopper and it's grand. And then sometimes you're just trying to make something to sling, and it's really gorgeous and you have to keep it. So my knife rack at home is just covered in knives that I couldn't really let go of. You know? It doesn't matter what you're making, but I think you do have to create, don't you think? I think so. Like, I certainly get very frustrated and upset very quickly if I feel like I'm not creating something in some way, contributing to the world in some way, you know what I mean? No matter what it is, even if you're just cooking dinner, making drinks, like it's important, you know? And it's nebulous. But you know when you aren't exercising your creativity because you start to feel really weird, not in a good way. So yeah, I think it's huge. I think it's the most important thing, you know? What was really funny was that, like, the first knife I ever made in Connemara, I made it to make it. I made it because I wanted to learn how to do it and to learn all the skills involved in making a knife. And then when it was done, I was delighted. I was like, oh, look, I made a knife, isn't this great? But then I took it home that night and said, oh, I better cook dinner. I'll use my new knife. And then I cooked dinner and I was like, hold on a minute. This is so much more than I ever thought it would be. I'd made this thing, I completely forgot that I'd use it every day for the rest of my life. Do you know what I mean? So when I cooked dinner with it, like, it was like a thunderbolt struck me. I was like, this now has a purpose. Like, the making it was just the first tiny bit. The fact that this knife was going to be used every day, that's the magic trick, you know? And as well, what's lovely about high carbon steel is that as you use it, as it cuts food, it reacts. It's a reactive, it's not stainless. So it reacts with the levels of acidity in whatever you cut. So as soon as you start to use it, the blade starts to darken and patinate and develop this gorgeous dark mottled patina, which is ever-changing and unique, like a fingerprint. And what that is the blade telling the story of your using it. I love making knives. I'd be doing it anyway. I'd be doing it if they all went in the bin afterwards. But the fact that they go on to begin their lives in someone else's house and someone else uses them to cook and feed their family with, that's the real stroke of kind of miraculousness that I love, you know? You know, I get a warning, not a warning, a notification from my phone every Monday morning that says, like, you averaged 2.5 hours every day on your phone last week. And you're just like, what? That's so bad, you know what I mean? It's not like I'm doing anything on it, I'm just staring at Instagram. And I think a lot of people kind of have that. But no, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of creativity to be used on phones. The content you see some people making is incredible. Like, it's not how I do it, but that's not to say it's not unreal. But I do think there's a huge danger of it, yeah. But as well, it's a double-edged sword. Like, there's so much exposure now to all different types of things. Like, I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for Instagram. You know what I mean? It wouldn't have occurred to me if I hadn't seen other makers like Fingal Ferguson doing it and things. And as well, awareness of my work. There would be no awareness of my work if I didn't have an Instagram account. You know, so it's a necessary evil. But yeah, I do think it's very, very important to spend as little time on your phone as possible and do anything else, really, yeah. There's real appeal in things that you know have been made by hand, by someone in Ireland, for instance. Do you know what I mean? I think people like my knives because they know that a guy down in Limerick made them with his 2 hands. And yeah, you can get a much cheaper one on Amazon or Temu or something like that, but they're charmless. They're totally charmless. So I think the sort of mass availability of everything to everyone has almost sort of highlighted the handmade and the sort of the high-end handmade crafted objects, because they are unique and they are rare, and they're things of human beauty and human creation, unlike anything you can get on Amazon. Again, with Instagram, it's really good. You can see what people are doing. You can, with YouTube and things, you can say, I want to take up wood turning. I don't know where to begin. You can start somewhere, you know what I mean? Or I want to do knife making. My recommendation is do a course. Do a course somewhere and see if you like it before you invest in all the gear, and you might hate it. Do a course, work out what you're doing, and then just get the stuff and try and find a place where you can do it. Try and shave out a few minutes every day. Do it, like, you know what I mean? And doing it's easier said than done. As I said, I was working in a restaurant and I was volunteering, I was doing work experience left, right and centre. I was kind of doing anything I could to start using my hands and my brain again, in any way, doing anything. And it took a long time to land on making knives, you know, and I'm very, very lucky that I can do this for a living. But it does take a certain amount of just sort of leaping in with both feet, and like also doing it for free for a long time. You can forget about making money from it for a long time. You have to do it. I think you have to do it because you want to do it. But I think the best thing to do is do a course. Yeah, do loads of courses. What are you going to do? Regret doing a course in something? Forget about it. It's going to be class.